friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 8th of April and we are going to deal with two very important topics which are in news. First is the total solar eclipse. Total solar eclipse as a phenomenon will be experienced by the people living in North America today. Countries like Canada, USA, Mexico will experience this at different times of the day. Solar eclipse is a phenomenon where moon comes in line between the sun and the earth. That is why the shadow of the moon falls on the earth. The place at where the shadow falls and there is complete darkness, that is called as total solar eclipse. It is believed by scientists that at a particular place, total solar eclipse happens every 400 years or once in 400 years. Generally speaking, solar eclipse happens 2 to 5 times in a year, and a total solar eclipse happens once in 1.5 years. So let's see how this phenomenon is going to impact the people living over there. Next is World Health Day. The World Health Day is celebrated on 7th of April every year. Like many years, this year also, health equity is one of the major issues. And, the theme for this year is My Health, My Right. Health equity is a phenomenon where, all members of the society, whether poor or rich, male or female, living in the urban areas or in the rural areas, belonging to whichever community or society, have equal access to healthcare benefits. Health equity obviously is not proper in India because there is a lot of gap between urban and the rural areas, between the rich and the poor, between the males and the females, as well as between the upper caste and the lower caste. So we need a multi-pronged strategy to achieve this health equity in our country. The government has taken multiple steps like Ayushman Bharat in this regard, which are definitely bridging this gap. So let's get started and let's see the first topic, that is total solar eclipse. So, on April 8th, that is today, a total solar eclipse will cross North America, passing over Mexico, USA, and Canada. This type of solar eclipse is a rare event for many or for any particular spot. Scientists believe that it takes 400 years for a particular spot to experience total solar eclipse. Now, this is according to the Royal Museum's Greenwich. Now, we need to understand what is solar eclipse before we get into more technicalities. So, solar eclipse, as you can see in this image, is a situation where the moon comes in between the earth and the sun. And this moon, extends its shadow over here. The point at which the intensified shadow is basically projected is called as umbra. There is complete darkness, and umbra is basically a spot of total solar eclipse. So we can say that North America is going to experience umbra today, and the other regions, which is an extended region, it is where the shadow is not intensified, but shadow is there. That is called as penumbra. So in areas around North America, penumbra will be witnessed. In America, umbra will be witnessed. Now, types of solar eclipse. There are 4 types of solar eclipse. Technically, there are 3. The 4th type is a combination of these two situations. The two situations among these 3. So one by one, we will look at it. First is the total solar eclipse. Total solar eclipse, as we can see this particular image, only the outer atmosphere of the sun, that is cornea, is basically witnessed. So it is basically that, so sorry, not cornea, corona it is called as, that is witnessed, the outer atmosphere of the sun, which is usually not visible due to bright face of the sun. So at place where umbra is there, the moon covers it completely, covers the sun completely, that kind of eclipse is called as total solar eclipse, and this is which is expected today in North America. So there is expected complete darkness to be there, and it is believed that during total solar eclipse and all, you cannot look to the sun directly, although the sun is hidden, but yes, the outer portion, the corona of the sun, is visible, and that can cause damage to your eyes. Then next is annular solar eclipse. Annular solar eclipse is this, where sun appears like a disk. Now here you can see the extent of the coverage by the moon of the sun is more. Here the coverage is less. And this annular solar eclipse happens when, you know, the moon is at the nearest or at the farthest position. Actually, the nearest position of the sun is called as, or the closest position of, sorry, the moon. When the moon is closest to the earth, the closest is called as perigee, and the farthest, when the moon is the farthest, is called as apogee. And in that situation, when the moon is the closest, that is at perigee, or it is farthest, that is apogee, at that time when this situation is there and the moon comes in between the sun and the earth, that kind of eclipse is called as annular solar eclipse. Okay. In this scenario, the moon covers the sun in such a way that only the periphery of the sun remains visible, looking like a ring of fire. So this is basically annular. Then the third is partial solar eclipse. So as the name suggests, partially the moon is covering the sun and the remaining portion of the sun is visible to us. A partial solar eclipse takes place when the moon blocks just a part of the sun, giving it a crescent shape. During both partial and annular eclipses, the regions outside the area covered by the moon's umbra, the middle and the darkest part of the lunar shadow, will see a partial solar eclipse. A partial solar eclipse will be witnessed over here in this scenario where the sun is visible. So partial solar eclipse is the most common type of solar eclipse which happens. But this kind of solar eclipse which is going to be experienced today by the people in North America is total solar eclipse. The fourth type, that is called as hybrid solar eclipse, in most of the classifications you will not find this. But yes, to be more technically correct, we are taking this into account because in this image also you can see the types of eclipses. There are three types of eclipses, but this fourth hybrid solar eclipse is basically a combination of annular and total. So it is the rarest type of solar eclipse. It is witnessed when an eclipse shifts between annular and total as the shadow of the moon moves across the globe. In this case, some parts of the world see a total solar eclipse while others observe an annular solar eclipse. So this happens when the moon moves or this eclipse moves from annular to total. Then that kind of eclipse is called as hybrid solar eclipse, and in this eclipse some parts of the world will experience total solar eclipse, some parts of the world will experience annular solar eclipse. So these are the types of solar eclipses which we needed to understand. Now, how often does a solar eclipse occur? That we need to understand. See, first condition for a solar eclipse to occur is during a full moon or a new moon, during a new moon. You might be wondering, the new moon happens every 29-30 days. So means every 29-30 days there is a solar eclipse. Actually, no. When does a new moon occur? A new moon occurs about 29.5 days because that is how long it takes the moon to orbit the earth. New moon generally, like this is the earth, this is the moon. When it completes one orbit, that is somewhere around 29.5 days, a new moon is witnessed. So first condition for a solar eclipse to happen is a new moon should be there. Okay. But new moon occurs every 29.5 days. So does that mean that every 29.5 days there is a solar eclipse? No. This does not mean that a solar eclipse happens every month. It takes place only between the 2 to 5 times annually. So 2 to 5 times annually this eclipse happens. Now why solar eclipse takes place 2 to 5 times annually and not every month, that is not after every 29.5 days? We need to understand this technicality. This is the sun. This is the plane of orbit of earth around the sun, the red one which I drew. Now the plane of orbit of the moon around the earth. See, if this is the plane of orbit of earth around the sun, the plane of orbit of moon around the earth is 5-degree tilted. So this tilt, the plane is not same, or plane is not having 0 degree among it. It is a bit tilted like this. It is means the or plane of orbit of moon around the earth. And due to this, at times what happens? When a full moon is there and a solar eclipse has to happen, means moon has to be there between earth and the sun. At times, the sun rays create a shadow which is beyond the earth, or at times this also happens. So every new moon will not cause an eclipse. That is why it is written that 2 to 5 times annually a situation comes where this shadow of this moon falls on the earth. Most of the time it goes out of the reach of the earth, the shadow. Why? Because this plane is tilted. Plane of rotation or revolution of moon around the earth is tilted. So this is the reason. Now, why this eclipse is special? First of all, it is a total solar eclipse. It happens about once every 18 months, total solar eclipse. As mentioned before, a particular spot on Earth witnesses a total solar eclipse only once in 400 years. So, anywhere on Earth, total solar eclipse happens once in 1.5 years. But at a particular spot, if a total solar eclipse is there, then on that spot, 400 years thereafter, a total solar eclipse will be there according to the calculations by the scientists. Now, this is because total eclipse is only visible if one is standing in the umbra. The other part of the shadow is called as penumbra, which is not as dark as umbra. So, we've seen that in the initial picture. The umbral shadow is very small, covering only a small part of Earth. In fact, the entire path of umbral shadow during a solar eclipse will only cover less than 1% of the globe. And now this time, umbra is falling on the continent North America. See, around 70% of the earth is water. 70 to 75%, or roughly 70% of the earth is water. So many a times it happens that, umbra falls on the oceans. Even the continents, if I talk about, much of them are uninhabited also, or approximately half of the continents are uninhabited. Many a times umbra falls over there in the uninhabited zone. But this time, this total solar eclipse happens and a lot of people get to see it because it is happening in North America, which is inhabited by a lot of people. So that is why this solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse, is special. Next is World Health Day. World Health Day is celebrated on April 7th. That is yesterday. It was celebrated. And it basically unites us around one topic, that is health equity. Now, the concept of equity, I've explained it multiple times before, but yes, I will explain it again. Let's suppose this is a ball and there is a cricket match going on over here. Players are playing over here. There are three friends who came to watch this match. One's height is less, the other's height is relatively more, and the tallest one. So according to this scenario, the tallest one is able to see the match, but these two are not able to see the match. So we will provide them with some support. Now that support needed by this particular player, which is the shortest, will be more, or it will be the most. This player, or this I would not player, but yes, this spectator will be requiring support but lesser than this one, and this, the tallest, will not be requiring any support. This is the concept of equity. You give more support to the more vulnerable, and accordingly, so that equality is achieved. So end result of equity is equality. So we want to bring in equity so that equality is there. So when I talk about health equity, the most vulnerable people should be given more support or most support. And likewise, because health is kind of a right of everyone who is there, surviving on this planet, whether it be rich, whether it be poor, whether it be person living in rural area, in urban area, whether male, female, transgender, or anyone. Now, World Health Organization has declared health to be a fundamental human right. That is why the concept of equity is applicable over here, because it has to be, accessed by all. The theme this year is My Health, My Right. There's an alarming gap in healthcare access, highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic, environmental crisis, growing socio-economic gaps, as well as geopolitical tensions. Now, this gap between the haves and have-nots, haves in those who are having access to good healthcare, those who are not having access to good healthcare. This gap increases in certain circumstances, like a pandemic is there, or I would say geopolitical tensions are there, or I would say environmental crisis like global warming or climate change is there. So in these kind of situations, this gap further widens, and we have to take special, you know, care in these kind of situations. So in order to achieve equity or equality, even though over 140 nations recognize health as a constitutional right, WHO Council on the Economics of Health for All reports that more than half of world's population needs complete access to essential health services. Unfortunately, India does not, as of now, recognizes health as a constitutional right. Now, what is the meaning of health equity? This is not explained, but yes, in definition wise, we can say health equity ensures that every person has an equal opportunity to achieve their highest health potential, no matter what their circumstances are. So, equal opportunity. Those three friends are now able to see that match. They are at equal heights. Why they are at equal heights? Because support was given to the shortest one. And likewise, recognizing that social, economic, and environmental factors impact health outcomes, this idea goes beyond genetics. So, what this statement means is कि in times of pandemics or geopolitical tensions or climate change as such, these kind of problems get exacerbated and they go beyond genetics. We need to take into consideration these things. True health equity addresses the root causes of health inequities such as poverty, discrimination, limited access to high quality education, a healthy diet, clean water, fresh air, housing. So all these are intrinsic part of health equity. These things or these facilities should be there. Then only, people will be living a healthy life, because the ultimate objective of health equity is a healthy life. Is there need for health equity in India? Obviously, there are a lot of disparities in India. You talk about gender disparities, you find it in India. You talk about caste disparities, you find it in India. You talk about rural urban divide, you find it in India. So, and on all these lines, there is a divide between, divide on the healthcare lines. Now, consider an example over here. A child born into poverty in a rural area has no access to clean water, wholesome food, or immunizations, which lays the foundations for chronic health problems. And on the other hand, a child born in an urban setup having access to all these facilities, obviously, there will be an advantage. These differences are made worse by pandemics, climate change, and socio-political unrests. India is diverse and has wide socio-economic gaps. Thus, this predicament strikes a chord, means there is health inequality or there is a need for health equity to be achieved in India. There are challenges. We as a country are facing numerous challenges on delivering healthcare services to the people, especially the poor, especially the rural people, especially the females, or I would say, especially the lower caste. Now, with a large number of people and diversified population, India faces persistent obstacles on this front. Even though access to healthcare has improved over the past 20 years, there is still much work to be done in rural India. Because in rural India, there are no, I would say, primary healthcare centers which are universally established, means in all the villages. Even if they are there, doctors are not there. Even if doctors are there, medicines, equipments, and all machinery is not there. So these kind of gaps are there, and these gaps need to be addressed. We should take learnings from the COVID pandemic, and the learning is our, I would say, neglect of healthcare sector, and the learning should be increased focus on the healthcare sector. Next is, according to 2011 census, urban slums. We're talking about rural areas, okay, but in urban areas also the situation is not, I would say, so good or it is perfectly fine. It is not the case. There are slums in the country. Slums, living conditions are improper. No proper sanitation is there, no proper ventilation is there, access to clean drinking water is not there, which are causing a lot of diseases. And these people are urban poor people, so they're not able to afford the treatment to these kind of diseases. So urban slums make up over 17% of India's metropolitan areas and exhibited serious health disparities. Health risks are increased by overcrowding, poor sanitation, and restricted access to clean water. So overcrowding basically leads to spread of contagious diseases like tuberculosis. COVID also spread. It was also contagious. So it is like this. So infectious diseases such as tuberculosis, which we covered a few days ago, are 1.5 times more common in slums than in non-slum areas, according to the Indian Council of Medical Research. Then disparities across caste. Now the National Family Health Survey clearly highlights that scheduled caste and scheduled tribes experience the higher child mortality and lower immunization rates. So these people are at times apprehensive of such kind of immunization programs, or the healthcare service providers, they discriminate against them and they do not administer vaccines and all to their children. So that is one such reason. Disparities across gender. 59% of women in the lowest wealth quantile. Lowest wealth quantile means lowest 50%. They are prone to disease, or they are prone to a situation called as anemia. Anemia is caused where there is low oxygen carrying capacity of your red blood cells, and this anemia causes a lot of other diseases. So this is there, which is double the rate in the highest quantile, demonstrating intersection of caste, gender and economic status in healthcare outcome. A critical shortage of doctors is there. Now in India, per 1000 population there are 0.8 doctors, which is less than which is recommended by WHO. How much does WHO recommend? One doctor per 1000 population. That is where we are lacking, and we need to increase the number of doctors in the country, because the population is increasing rapidly, so we need to cope up. Even though over 75% of healthcare professionals work in metropolitan regions, which only account for 27% of the population, the shortage is particularly severe in rural areas. Again, one such factor which is dividing the urban and rural areas. So that has to be taken care of. Now, what should India do with this? In order to achieve this health equity, which will further lead to equality. India's health equity issues require a multi-pronged strategy. A comprehensive approach is required. If I say that only by focusing on the healthcare infrastructure, we'll be able to tackle it, or only by increasing the number of doctors, we'll be able to tackle it. Sorry, we will not be able to tackle it. We need a holistic approach. That holistic approach obviously includes all these points which I just said: healthcare infrastructure, doctors and all. But apart from it, well-trained healthcare professionals are required, paramedics which are called as. People should be educated enough so that they can take care of their health by themselves. So petty things they can take care. They can take care of their nutritional intake and all, which if taken care of will lead to less diseases. They can take care of their sanitation, their cleanliness around them. If taken care, there will be less diseases. The Swachh Bharat mission has to be implemented in a diligent way, because one of the objectives of Swachh Bharat mission is to reduce the expenditure on healthcare. Why? How it will be reduced? Because proper sanitation will be there, so that will be causing less diseases. Then the non-governmental organizations have to be there. The government has to spend much, implement the programs in a more diligent way. So a multi-pronged strategy is required to move India towards universal health coverage and a more equitable future. The government, civil society, healthcare providers, and communities need to work together. Governments and officials may influence the state of health through funding, creative policies, and laws. And the government has done that also in the form of Ayushman Bharat, where it provides free health coverage to the bottom 40% of the population. 5 lakh per household insurance coverage is there, and that insurance coverage can be utilized in the private hospitals as well. And you don't have to fill, or you don't have to pay any premium for that. The government pays it. So that is one step ahead towards becoming, an equitable India in terms of healthcare, where we are giving these kind of facilities to the poor people. They can go and get themselves treated in big private hospitals, which they never could have dreamt of. And they don't have to pay a single penny because everything is settled through Ayushman Bharat. Then National Health Mission includes both the National Rural Health Mission and National Urban Health Mission. It reduces healthcare gap between rural and urban India by expanding access, strengthening infrastructure, and providing essential services to vulnerable population. So all the infrastructure and all in the urban areas or rural areas is getting developed under National Health Mission. That has to be implemented in a diligent way and with this focus of reducing the gap between urban areas and rural areas. Then, achieving health equity requires raising health literacy. People should be aware, first of all, about their nutritional intakes. Second of all, about vaccination programs for their children, especially for them also and for the children also. There should not be this vaccine hesitancy among them, which was also witnessed during COVID-19 because after vaccine you fall ill. That is a normal, I would say, medical process. But these people say that this vaccine was administered and we fell ill. What is the use of this vaccine? Actually, they are not aware about the process through which this vaccine works. So, we need to inculcate this kind of literacy or awareness among them. India should, you know, turn health equality to a shared community driven goal by including health education in the National Health Mission. And right from the very beginning, I would say during the school and all, we should talk about these kind of things. What is the importance of vaccination? How does vaccination work? What is the importance of nutrition intake? How should we intake it? And all these things should be taught to the children. And these are the children who, once they grow up, they will procreate and they will be becoming parents to to their children. So they can take care of their children's nutrition intake, vaccination right from the very beginning. And this will obviously reduce the pressure on the healthcare facilities all across the country. This by merely educating them, Then, together with the government, the public and private healthcare sectors provide services to underprivileged communities, emphasizing preventive education, workforce development, and infrastructure enhancement. Private sector can come into picture. There are multiple charitable hospitals all across the country. They can, uh, intensify their operations, or they can, upgrade their operations to provide this kind of healthcare, affordable healthcare, or free healthcare to the most vulnerable. And government can support them as well. Then the NGOs, the non-government organizations and civic societies engage in direct community outreach. They can be very much instrumental in educating the people about nutrition intake, vaccinations, or XYZ, anything related to healthcare. Their collaboration with international and governmental organizations like WHO can also, further push their, efforts in the country. And last but not the least, through innovation and technical growth, particularly in digital health, equity can be achieved. So research and development for medical sciences and all should be done. One important thing is that if research and development is there and if we find a breakthrough for any kind of, I would say, cure, then the government should make sure that that new cure is affordable, is accessible by the poor. There's no use of a new invention being only for the rich. This has been the stand which has been taken by the developed rich countries as of now. They invent a new medicine and they sell it for exorbitant prices so that only the rich can afford it, the poor cannot. But that should not be done in the country. So research and development should be here. Research and development for infusing digitalization in this healthcare, that should also be there. This will lead to health equity. I'll explain this by an example. Like there is an application e-Sanjeevani. You can download it from Play Store or Apple Store. Now this is basically an application which provides telemedicine. Telemedicine is basically doctors sitting in the urban areas who are experts can consult patients sitting in rural areas online on the phone. And the district health centers can get connected with the, I would say, rural health centers. It is working on a hub and spoke model. So good facilities or good services, healthcare services are delivered at the last mile in the rural areas to the most vulnerable section of the society. This is basically nothing but digital intervention in healthcare that can increase or enhance accessibility and affordability as well. So this is how equity can be achieved. Now topics are over. We now come to the MCQs. First is consider the following questions and mark the correct statement. A total solar eclipse occurs once in 400 years on Earth. Solar eclipse happens when the moon comes between sun and Earth. It might seem simple, but yes, read it carefully to answer it correctly. Just a hint. Second is match the following, column A, and this is column B. I forgot to write column B over here. So total solar eclipse, annular solar eclipse, umbra, penumbra. Total solar eclipse, not so dark, moon is nearest to the earth, sun's corona can be visible. So accordingly you have to mark or match the following, whatever you feel are the right options, 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, like this. Match the following. Consider the following statements and mark the correct statement. Achha. One I would say disclaimer over here is that 1A is not right. Total solar eclipse and total solar eclipse, if you mark this, then it is going to be wrong. So one option is eliminated for you. The answer is among the rest three. This is the biggest hint I could give over here. Now consider the following statements and mark the correct statement. Assertion, reasoning. A solar eclipse is witnessed 2 to 5 times annually. Reasoning, the moon does not orbit Earth in the same plane as the Earth orbits the sun. So both A and R are correct and R is the correct explanation of it. Both A and R are correct. The B option is both A and R are correct and R is not the correct explanation of it. A is true, R is false. A is false, R is true. So among these four lies the answer. The fourth is World Health Day is celebrated on which of the following day? इससे simple question हो नहीं सकता था. Means there could not be a simpler question. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Health equity means healthcare benefits should be available till the last mile, and climate change impacts health equity. Which of these are correct? And with this, we come to an end of today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys take care and also very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.